What are we discussing on today's podcast, you ask? Well, we got to discuss the D-backs blowing the series finale to the Atlanta Braves. The Torey Lavello extension, is it good? Is it bad? And can Corbin Carroll win NL MVP? Discussing all that on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast.
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonmlb today to get 10% off your first month. I'm Millard Thomas, host of this wonderful podcast. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. If you want to see more content by me, just follow me on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 for my personal account, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks about Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. And of course, thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free and available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. One of those platforms is YouTube, so please hit subscribe on the Locked on Diamondbacks YouTube channel. But now I want to talk about that series against the Atlanta Braves and talk about that series finale, because the D-backs had a great opportunity to take 2 out of 3 from the Atlanta Braves, arguably the best team in the conference with the D-backs and Dodgers. And the D-backs, riding that 6-game winning streak after Friday's dub, the D-backs had a great chance to really win this series and really put themselves on the map as a legit team. I think eyeballs have already been turning their attention toward this D-backs team with the kind of start that they've had this season, but they still haven't had they've had signature series wins, but beating a team like the Atlanta Braves to start the month of June on, after you just had that winning streak, if you're then able to win this series against the Braves and really lock in the best record in the National League to kick off June, I would have thought that would have just put such more credibility in the pocket of this D-backs team with how they've played this year. But unfortunately, that didn't happen because the D-backs blew the series finale to the Braves and they had the game won. This was not a game where the Atlanta Braves just came out and started dominating the D-backs from the offset, where they were scoring runs from the first couple innings, got off to like a 5-6-0 lead and just rode that all the way to the end. No, it was the D-backs who started the scoring early. It was the D-backs who took advantage early, had a stranglehold on the lead until there was 2 outs in the 9th inning. And then what happens? Miguel Castro gives up a grand slam to Eddie Rosario, who was the star of the series. Grand slam in the 9th inning with, of course, if it's a grand slam, the bases were loaded. It was his 3rd home run of the series, and he was just a D-backs killer in this one. And for the D-backs, it was just disappointing to see because you did get really good stuff in this game. Zach Gallen, I thought, wasn't his usual sharp self, but even with that being said, he still got you a quality start. He labored a little bit in this one, but it was nice to see him go out there, eat the innings, throw 110 pitches, and grind through the 6 innings against his Braves team. The Braves team was really coming after Gallen. They had 9 hits against Gallen. Felt like every inning they had runners in scoring position. Felt like Gallen had to work through traffic on the bases like every 15 minutes in this ball game, and he was able to do it because Zach Gallen is that guy, and he leaves this game with 2.75 ERA, so he's still right in mix for the Cy Young Award. And I think I just checked FanDuel. He's like number 2, right neck and neck with Spencer Strider, who we also saw in this series. So Zach Gallen, I thought himself had a good day against the Braves. Not an elite Zach Gallen, typical day, but he had a pretty good day against the Atlanta Braves. And the 6 innings, 2 earned runs, 6 strikeouts, you'll definitely take that for Zach Gallen. And the offense, Corbin Carroll, another home run. Perdomo had a clutch double in this game. Josh Rojas broke out of his slump. Finally, he went 2 for 3 in this ball game. The D-backs offense was able to put 5 runs up after 4 innings. And then after that, they weren't able to score again. They did have opportunities throughout this game, and one of their best opportunities to put more runs in this game was when Jake McCarthy got on in the later innings. And it was almost the Corbin Carroll where Corbin Carroll gets on with 1 out, then he steals second, he steals third, and then your guy at the plate just hits a sacrifice fly to add one more insurance run. That almost happened in this game because Jake McCarthy did steal second, he did steal third, and then Gabriel Moreno unfortunately struck out. But we saw a lot of good things from this D-backs team throughout this game. With the Martes putting in work, Corbin Carroll got a couple hits. I mean, the D-backs team had 8 hits in total, so you really couldn't complain too much about the D-backs offense except for the fact that it slowed down after the 4th inning. But even with that being said, I can only put so much blame on them because I thought this game really just came down to the bullpen blowing it. And unfortunately, it was the D-backs' 2 best relievers that did it because Andrew Chafin gave up 2 hits and an earned run. And then Miguel Castro, of course, gave up the grand slam. And it just adds to the emphasis of the point that I made the other day where I want the D-backs to have one closer going forward, and they probably still need to trade for another back-end reliever or potential closer because I don't know if Miguel Castro and Andrew Chafin are the closing options on this D-backs team. I have picked Andrew Chafin at times to be the closer every day. I've picked Miguel Castro at times, and the closer by committee, it just doesn't seem to be consistent enough. I think the D-backs need someone that they can trust in the 9th inning because it feels like when Miguel Castro is an 8th inning guy, setup guy, he's been elite in that situation. The high leverage guy feels like Miguel Castro has been elite in that situation, but then we need him to close games, get the save. It feels like he gets a case of the shakies. Same with Andrew Chafin. Of course, today wasn't the best example. It feels like a lot of times Andrew Chafin in the 7th or 8th inning, he's looking dominant. But then when you want him to close the game in the high leverage moment, that's when he struggles a little bit. And that's been the case for a lot of these D-backs pitchers. I mean, Scott McGough was terrible as the D-backs closer, but did you know he's got 3.23 ERA after today's outing? Lower than both Andrew Chafin and Miguel Castro because Scott McGough, when he hasn't been the closer this year for the D-backs, when he hasn't pitched in the 9th inning, has actually been pretty good for this D-backs team. So that's going to be their biggest issue going forward. What do you do with that 9th inning? How do you close games? Because we've seen so many D-backs wins just fall short the last couple years because of this D-backs bullpen. And even just last season, I think the D-backs team last year could have been like a 500 ball club if they just had a better closing situation. And so I don't want to see this D-backs team once again fall short of expectations just because they don't know how to close a game. And as this season progresses, as this D-backs team keeps winning games, expectations are going to rise. And if you make the postseason without a reliable closer and you get to games in October where you're up 1 run in the 9th inning and you're like, who do I go to? You're scrambling for answers. You put a Castro out there, you put a Chafin out there, you put McGough out there, but you're not confident in any of them in that closing role. And then you expect what has happened to the D-backs the last couple of years and they blow the game in that situation. You're just going to feel awful if you're Mike Hazen in this front office if you don't make a move at the deadline or before to address the closing situation, because I don't know if the D-backs have the answer to the closer role internally. I mean, we've seen the Castros. He's looked good at times. The Chafins has looked good at times. Scott McGough has a track record of closing. I don't think Dre Jameson's the closer. Do you want to try Ryan Nelson out there? Like, internally, I don't think the D-backs have the closer on their roster. I don't think Austin Adams is going to turn into the closer for the D-backs. So it's a big issue and a big hole that the D-backs need to fix before they get to the postseason. But even with all that being said, even after this heartbreaking loss to the Atlanta Braves, the D-backs still finished this series with a record of 35-25. At the time of me recording this podcast, the Dodgers lost to the New York Yankees. So when I check the standings, the D-backs are still in first place in the NL West. They no longer have the best record in the NL because they are now tied for wins with the Atlanta Braves, but the Braves have 1 less loss than the Arizona Diamondbacks. But the D-backs on June 4th, at the time you guys listening this podcast, June 5th, the D-backs are sitting in first place in the NL West. Yeah, things could be a lot worse for us D-backs fans. And coming up, I want to talk about Tory Lavello in the contract 1-year extension that he got? Is it good for this D-backs franchise? But before we go there, I want to talk about one thing that is good for your car if you need parts to fix your vehicle, because I'm talking about eBay Motors. Because for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to my garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right. Let's get back into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Don't forget, you can catch every D-backs pitch on their hometown broadcast when you download the SiriusXM app and search up Diamondbacks. And speaking of the D-backs, let's talk about their manager in Torey Lovullo, because Tory Lavello got a little 1-year extension that will take him through the year 2024. And I just want to know how D-backs fans are feeling about this Tory Lavello extension, how D-backs fans feel about Tory Lavello in general, because at times it's a hot and cold relationship with Tory Lavello, especially when going through seasons like 2021, when you're winning sub 55 games and your team is just awful and your season's basically over after the month of May. But then Tory Lavello also has seasons like 2017 when he's a rookie manager for the D-backs. He wins NL Manager of the Year. He takes the team to the playoffs. You win the wild card game. Like, Tory Lavello has had his ups and downs with his D-backs franchise. And I want to know how you guys feel about the extension, because I currently feel like it's fine. A 1-year deal with how this team has played this year. I think that's fine for Tory Lavello. I think he's probably a B minus when it comes to being a manager. He's solid. He's fine. He's good. Are there better managers in baseball? Yeah. Better tacticians? Sure. Because when it comes to Tory Lavello, my biggest issue with him is always just how he divvies up his lineup utilization is probably my biggest issue with him most of the time, because like we're seeing currently right now, we got Pavin Smith just playing in the outfield and leading off, when Pavin Smith is just not that good of an offensive player. He probably should be leading off for a team that has arguably the best record in the National League, or arguably the best team in the National League. He probably shouldn't be playing in the outfield, but that's what Tory Lavello, this front office, has decided to do, I guess. And sometimes Tory Lavello just is too locked in on those platoon stats, too locked in on the matchups. That's why we got Pavin Smith leading off against righties. Like, even that being said, Pavin Smith should probably never lead off in any scenario. I mean, we got guys like Perdomo playing the way he is. He should probably be higher. We got guys like Rojas, even though he's slumping. Like, they're just better players from a left-handed standpoint that could lead off. You can even do Ketel Marte as a leadoff guy, and then you could stack it with Corbin Carroll, and then the Lourdes Gurriel, and then a Christian Walker. Maybe you want to put Emmanuel Rivera after that, or maybe you want to, maybe lead off Jake McCarthy since he's back on the major league level. Like, do I think a better leadoff option is a Jake McCarthy or a Pavin Smith? I've seen Jake McCarthy have a higher offensive ceiling throughout his major league career with the speed that he has and possesses. Like, that guy's a leadoff hitter. Makes a lot more sense than a Pavin Smith. So decisions like that in the lineup have frustrated me at times with Torey Lovullo. Sometimes he pulls the plug too quickly on his starters. I like the fact they let Zach Allen go out there and throw 110 pitches today. But there's definitely been starts in the past where we've seen Merrill Kelly have like 85 pitches after 6 or 7 innings, and Torey Lovullo's like, you know what? I'm coming to pull the plug now. I don't think he should go out there and try to throw 50 more pitches. So for Torey Lovullo, I think he's fine. I think he's an all right manager, and I think he was deserving of the 1-year extension. I think when your team is performing like this, like, Torey Lavello is going to be in the NL Manager of the Year conversation, and it's going to be a real question whether he wins it or deserves to win it, because with his team playing like this, with some of the youngsters like Corbin Carroll playing out their mind, we got guys like Zach Gallen pitching like Cy Young performances, like, you're going to look at the manager and give him a lot of credit for bringing the best out the players on this team. And so Torey Lavello is going to be in those conversations for NL Manager of the Year. And whether you think that's deserving or not, that's going to happen. So Tory Lavello, because of the fact that he's going to possibly be voted the best manager in baseball this year, it's not a surprise to see him at least get a 1-year extension. But the weird thing to me is, why do the Dbacks only decide to give Torey Lovullo a 1-year extension? Why don't they ever give him a multi-year extension? Why do they treat him like he's LeBron James and they just want to do a 2-year deal in case you need to opt out and get an upgrade? Is that the reason why? Do the Dbacks only give Torey Lovullo a 1-year extension at the time because they feel like he's a fine manager, but they always feel like there's something more that they could attain, another level of managerial not experience, what's the word that I want to say, but just like tactfulness? Like they think there's an upgrade out there that they could go get, and maybe they think Tory Lavello is good, but there's potentially someone else on the market, right? It's when you're like with that special someone and you're like, this person's cool, I like them, I find them conventionally attractive, but in the back of your mind you're like, can I do better? Is there someone else better for me? Should I be dating that Instagram model that I always see, that I like all their pictures and I slide in their DMs, but they don't ever respond back? Should I keep my options open for them? That's the D-backs right now with Tory Lavello. He's the girl next door. He's the good guy. He's the nice guy. But is he the guy that you actually want to settle down with? I don't know when it comes to Torey Lavello. I think he's good. And if this D-backs team goes far and they win a lot of games and they make a deep postseason run, and we'll see what that playoff success looks like. But if they have a lot of playoff success, then yeah, the 1-year extension will look smart for Torey Lavello. And I wouldn't be surprised if it gets extended beyond that. But this D-backs team makes the playoffs and falters in the wild card round or the first round, not the first round, the divisional round, I wouldn't be surprised if the D-backs reconsider their options going forward and decide, you know what, let's just play out the 1 year with Tory Lavello next season and then see potentially what's out there, or maybe just give him another 1-year deal until we feel like there's a real upgrade on the market. Because right now with Tory Lavello, I think the D-backs are happy with him, but I don't think they find him as the end all be all to all their managerial questions. Now I want to talk about whether Corbin Carroll has a potential chance to win the NL MVP. But before we get there, I want to talk to you guys about BetterHelp. Let me just pull up my little ad read here, because BetterHelp is something that is great for anyone who just needs to talk about some issues or things that they are going through in their personal life, because BetterHelp is something that has helped me in my past, just having a therapist and talking about things that's going on with yourself to someone that's not directly involved with your everyday personal life. It's just really fulfilling. And I think everyone could use BetterHelp to better increase maybe their happiness or just get to the root of the causes in their life. Because if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnMLB today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, right? That's how you spell help. BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB. And don't forget, you can catch every D-backs pitch on their hometown broadcast when you download the SiriusXM app and search up Diamondbacks. Before we talk about Corbin Carroll, I just want to clarify one thing. There's a part in this conversation where I talk about I'm not sure if a player has ever won MVP in the Rookie of the Year in the same season. And I go on to say, I don't think it's ever happened. After recording the podcast, I double check. Fred Lynn in 1975 and Ichiro Suzuki in 2001. Both of them won Rookie of the Year and the MVP in the same season. Fred Lynn, one of the greatest players of all time, and that was back in 1975, so a very long time ago. Then Ichiro Suzuki was like 30 years old when he came over, so not exactly your typical rookie. So Corbin Carroll would be a pretty interesting and a pretty big spectacle if he was able to do it this season. But now back to the conversation. And now let's talk about Corbin Carroll potentially winning the NL MVP, because after Sunday's performance, Corbin Carroll hit his 10th home run of the season. And I just had this crazy thought. What if Corbin Carroll actually won the NL MVP? How crazy would it be for a guy to win the Rookie of the Year and the NL MVP? I don't know if it's something that's ever happened before. I know people have won the Rookie of the Year and then won the MVP in back-to-back seasons, like Dustin Pedroia, who won Rookie of the Year and then the MVP in 08, 09, or excuse me, 07, 08. Former ASU Sun Devil, might I add, Dustin Pedroia. But I don't think any MLB player, I'd have to double check. So don't quote me on this, but I don't think any MLB player has ever won the Rookie and the MVP award in the same season, at least in the modern era, the last 20 30 years or so. So for Corbin Carroll, if he's able to do that, because after hitting his 10th home run of the season, he's on pace for like a 25 home run, 45 stolen base year. And I wonder, could Corbin Carroll actually win the NL MVP? How crazy would it be? Because after going 2 for 4 in Sunday's game, Corbin Carroll's slash line is now 286, 373, and 523. And I just wonder, what would Corbin Carroll's stats have to be like for him to actually win the MVP? Because a lot of times when you look at sports, when we look at the NFL, when you look at basketball, you just look at the best player on the best team, and that guy's going to be in heavy consideration for the MVP. We see it all the time in basketball. The best team a lot of times will have an MVP candidate finish in the top 3. Same with the NFL, right? The Chiefs are always one of the best teams. Mahomes is always in the MVP conversation. And for baseball, it doesn't typically happen, right? Mike Trout has won a ton of MVPs and has really never been to the postseason. He's been there one time. And so in baseball, it's a little bit easier to win that MVP. And not be on the best team. I mean, nowadays you got someone like Shohei Ohtani, like he's deserving to win the MVP when he's not on the best team. A guy like Aaron Judge had a historic season last year. Paul Goldschmidt was by far the best player in the NL last year, and he was also on a really good team. He was not on the best team in the NL, but he was on a really good team and had by far just the best stats. If Corbin Carroll has as good a stats as anybody in the MVP conversation, but he's also on the best team in the National League, I think that could give him a big edge, because right now no one's like exactly elevating themselves above the rest when it comes to this NL MVP debate, because you just look at the field right now. I'm on FanDuel for the NL MVP, and right now the favorite is Ronald Acuna Jr., who is having himself a fantastic season, and he should be the favorite right now, because if I pull up Acuna stats, he's got almost 1,000 OPS. He's batting over 300. He's got double-digit home runs. He leads the league in stolen bases. So he's basically Corbin Carroll on steroids, is basically Ronald Acuna. So I'm not surprised at all to see him leading. But after that, Freddie Freeman is 2, Mookie Betts is 3, Pete Alonso's 4, Juan Soto's 5, Paul Goldschmidt 6. Like, the field gets pretty even after Ronald Acuna at plus 130. Freddie Freeman's number 2 at plus 550. Mookie Betts is 3rd at plus 1,000. So I think after Acuna, the field gets pretty even. I think Corbin Carroll has good of a case as anyone pretty much after Ronald Acuna. Like, when I think of Pete Alonso at 4, or Juan Soto at 5, or Paul Goldschmidt at 6, Fernando Tatis at 7, like Corbin Carroll has been as good as any of those guys statistically, and he's been on a better team than all of them. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Corbin Carroll could at least get his name in the ring. I think the only thing that's holding him back is his lack of experience, his youth, and the fact that he is a rookie. But excuse me. If Corbin Carroll keeps playing like he is right now, and this Dbacks team keeps dominating, and Corbin Carroll potentially is recognized as the best player on this team, because I think he will finish with the best WAR and the best WRC plus, like, how can Corbin Carroll not be in the conversation? And right now, if you are a betting person, like, Corbin Carroll is plus 20,000 to win the NL MVP. So if you put $100 down, you could win $20,000 if Corbin Carroll wins the MVP. And I don't think that's a bad bet at all. He's behind guys like Brandon Nimmo and Ian Happ and JT Realmuto and Jonathan India and Jazz Chisholm. Like, Corbin Carroll is having a better season than all those guys. And if he does finish with like 30 home runs and 50 stolen bases, and the D-backs have the best record in the NL, and his slash line's like 290 with like a 370 OBP and a 520 slugging, like, you're going to tell me that guy is not going to be in the conversation for the NL most valuable player? He definitely will be. And I just think the odds, my overall point of this of this segment, really. It just, you should go put money on Corbin Carroll. He may not win the MVP, but I do think he'll be in the conversation. And for someone that's at plus 20,000 right now, he's like 30th on this list. I think it just criminal how low Corbin Carroll is. And I think you could just win major money with how talented he is, how good he is, the fact that he might be the best D-backs player already, the fact that it seems like he's making play after play in every single game, whether it's diving for balls in this Atlanta series, hitting walk-off hits in this most recent series last week against the Colorado Rockies to complete the sweep. Like, Corbin Carroll does it all for this D-backs team. And he's also exciting. He's like a tantalizing talent. Like, Corbin Carroll is not just some ho-hum player who goes out there and crushes, but doesn't have any charisma, is not exciting to watch, because there are players who are really good, who are MVP caliber players. Like someone like Francisco Lindor is getting a whole lot of MVP shares when he was Cleveland, but I don't think I want to turn on games to watch Francisco Lindor, or maybe he's a bad example, but there's other players who, you know, are elite, are superstars, but you're like, he's not exciting to watch. Corbin Carroll is exciting to watch with how he moves, how he runs, the way he just attacks the game overall. Corbin Carroll is a real talent and a treat to watch. And I think if you're not putting at least a couple of sprinkles down on plus 20,000 for Corbin Carroll to win NL MVP, I just think you're probably insane. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insights. Should be talking with Sully Baseball of Locked On MLB, so come check that out. Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. Put hashtag everydayer in the comment section on YouTube if you do listen every day. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Deuces.